All right, we are now looking like we are live. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Xbox Roundtable Podcast. This is show number 287. I'm Invader, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all here tonight with us. Welcome, welcome. We have a lot to go over tonight, and believe me, that is not an understatement if you've been following all the news. We have had massive Xbox leaks that show an interesting piece of their roadmap. The UK CMA has done a 180, it seems, and will now approve the ABK deal with Xbox. And we even have to talk about the Tokyo Game Show to cover that happened the past week. Some news there. No idea how we'll cover everything tonight, but you know what? We'll give it that old college try because, hey, why not? Joining us tonight, we have show friend Plume Network. Plume, how you been?
I've been doing great. I'm excited to be on here tonight. I don't think there's a better week to be on this podcast right now with everything that happened last week. Like you said, with the leaks, Tokyo Game Show, it's just been absolutely insane with the amount of news that's come out. But I'm doing good, and I appreciate you guys having me on tonight.
Of course. Hey, it's a pleasure again having you on. And yeah, when I was thinking about people to have on, I'm like, hey, Plume, we got the Tokyo Game Show coming up in a little bit. I'm like, yeah, he'd be a fun guy to talk about this with. And yeah, everything has just kind of accumulated very quickly. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, bud. Moving on to TXR regulars, starting off with Centurion, buddy. Hey, great to see you. How you been?
Yeah, it's been a little while. It's been great. Just took some time off, spent some time with my wife. Had a friend drive down. We went out and had some drinks last night and watched a band play. Definitely been just getting caught up around here. Also getting some gaming in. Definitely ADD in it on everything, playing everything from Starfield to a little bit of Liza P. And even starting to play Crime Boss Rocket City with my buddy down here. So definitely it's been a fun couple of weeks, but I'm definitely getting ready to dive back into all this. I mean, when I said I was going to take 2 weeks, I had no idea when I'd come back that it would be on this event.
Right? Yeah, no, I know how you feel, man. Like, it's just been crazy. Like, you could honestly dedicate a show just to probably one of these things alone, and it would be like a fun time all around. But yeah, lots to go over. But yeah, great having you, Sent. I love having you here. Moving on down the list, we got GeneralMLD, buddy. I saw you sneak in there. How are you been the past week?
Oh yeah, very sneaky. Yeah, doing pretty good here. Too many games to play right now. The backlog is beating me up right now. Like I'm playing Starfield, but now I'm juggling Lies of P and Sea of Stars. And October's gonna have a few good games I want to play. So it's just what a time to be an Xbox gamer right now. Never mind all the news that just dropped that like I'm sure we're all excited to talk about.
Hey, Invader.
Yes.
Just so you guys know, in the private chat in the background of StreamYard, there's a gift for you guys sitting in there, even for Plume. Just click on it.
No way. You got me Taylor Swift tickets? Awesome, buddy.
No, it definitely. Let's just say there would be no way. There'd be no way to send an email that big.
Man, you just made Crusaders Day here. Damn.
I just opened it. Whoa. Okay.
Exciting. All right. I have to when I'm quiet, I'm gonna have to browse through this, but thank you very much, Sent. It's not even Christmas yet. Thanks.
Making that a separate window.
So generous. But yeah, I agree, GeneralMLD. Like, I was hoping we could talk about some Liza P when I was thinking about some stuff, because we should cover some of these games, right? And yeah, I don't think we'll be able to talk about this week, but next week, maybe a different story. But looking forward to touching on that game. And Crusader, my giddy friend, what's up?
Listen, I had at first, today was a long day for me. I had to run the AV sound equipment for a mass with the bishop of our local diocese was there, and I was asked to run the sound equipment because they didn't have anyone else. So that was my day. But I mean, this week in gaming was great for me. I mean, I'm the leaks and rumors guy, and man, was this week man. It's gonna be the next mega thread's gonna be coming out. I'm probably gonna try and arrange it to drop the day after the deal closes, or maybe the day the deal closes. But it's going to be probably the biggest update I've ever had to do to this stupid thing. But I mean, in gaming, I beat Warhammer 40k Space Marine. I beat
Nice.
Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, which was my first Metal Gear game ever.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know it's not like the regular Metal Gear games in almost any way, but I did.
It's
I loved
fun.
it. And then I played Binary Domain.
Ooh, you
Oh,
actually
how'd you
got
like
to it.
that?
Oh my god, I loved it.
It's so good.
It had a couple of the boss designs were really clunky and like difficult for no reason. But it was like if Mass Effect didn't really have the choices. It was
Okay.
just a straight action game.
Yeah.
And I loved that.
Yeah.
I loved it. I was like, man, I want to get off work so I can go play more of this.
It's kind of cheesy, but at the same
Oh,
time,
yeah.
like it's fun. It's a good game. It's good.
I really hope that because the one game director at RGG Studios over at Sega, this was their first game, and the one game director says he's if Sega will let him, he'll make another one, and I'm just like, yes, I will buy another one day one. I'll be there day one.
What game are we talking about?
Binary Domain.
Oh wow, I have to still play the 360 version. When they do a remake or something?
No.
No,
I was
no.
playing the 360 version,
Oh,
Is that one
okay.
backwards compatible?
and I loved it. But the game director of RGG Studios in like 2021 said that they would be open to making a sequel if Sega would let them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that'd be
'Cause
cool.
It wasn't it was a commercial flop in the United States or like worldwide. It didn't do well.
It was, but it had like a cult following. And,
Yeah, it's grown over the years, and I know because they just added it to the backwards compatibility program, right?
a little while ago. Yeah, it was one of the
I think it
later
was in
ones.
2021.
It was one of the later ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know it's FPS boosted too. Like it plays beautifully on the console.
Well, hey, I mean, you never know these days. You never know, especially with proper funding. Let's see. Oh, and Eric Shockley, buddy, I saw you sneak in as well there. What's new and exciting?
Not much, but hopefully I keep saying I'll try to get into or get back to regular schedule game hopefully this week, but it's the one. But more so just watching the shitstorm that's been all over Twitter. Didn't know like we'd get all those, leaks but it makes the weeks exciting when we're, not getting other gaming news. So yeah.
Well, it's a massive drop, and believe me, I feel your pain. I've been saying the same thing recently, but hopefully this week coming up, I can get a lot more in. Okay, guys, before we begin, please, like and share out the show, as it does help us, especially with the algorithm. So please, to get as many people here as possible, that would be great. And hey, if you're a new person here, great to see you. Please sub to the channel. We'd love to have you stick around. All right. Okay, my friends, let's not waste a single second and get right into things. Talking about the UK CMA, basically, reversing their decision to now approve or pre-approve the Xbox takeover of Activision Blizzard King. In a nutshell, the CMA seems satisfied with the sale of Activision. Now that Microsoft has worked out a deal with Ubisoft for the cloud gaming rights. Well, basically, that's just a very short summary. But Centurion, my friend, I know you've been keeping up to date on things with this matter. What do you think about this about face move with the CMA? Because this seems pretty encouraging now, doesn't it?
It seems encouraging. I'm excited. It definitely kind of hushes a lot of people that thought that it wouldn't be possible, because as soon as we saw the CMA move to block it, although even I was kind of like, is there anything they can do? And obviously Microsoft persevered, and they definitely had the right legal team, and also the drive to get this across the finish line. We obviously could see that, maybe cloud and Call of Duty wasn't their main focus. Even Jim Ryan, we've seen in some of the documents, even from the recent leak, that even Jim Ryan knew this was more of a play for the mobile market. And that seems to be like more apparent now that we're seeing Microsoft obviously take those cloud rights and sell them to cloud streaming rights and sell the licensing rights to Ubisoft, who's going to now disseminate and obviously sell them back to people who want to use them. Even Crusader was talking about that. There's even going to be some stipulations there. Even Crusader touched on it in the pre-chat, Microsoft won't be able to try to purchase Ubisoft, the company, for at least 10 years. They can't make an exclusivity agreement at all between the two of themselves. So definitely this was a win for Xbox. It also feels like a political win for the CMA. That's where I still have my reservations about the CMA. I know some people might not like what I'm about to say, but I don't trust them because this has been a large amount, in my opinion, a little bit of political grandstanding from the CMA, because it just feels like they almost enjoy being like the hard ass of the regulatory community. And that it seemed like they were just really out to make a name for themselves, to rather listen to logic and any amount of reasoning, which is it's kind of interesting that we saw Microsoft was able to get the UK government to almost essentially put a little bit of pressure on CAT and the CMA, saying, hey, you guys are kind of making us look like we're not a great place to come and invest in for technology. And that's where it's like, I even during did any of you catch the Bloomberg interview where I forget the reporter's name, but it was one of the heads of the CMA, the female individual. Dude, she looked like, the look on her face looked like somebody had just totally, excuse the expression, pissed in her Wheaties. It was like she was not excited at all for the fact that that they're pretty much being that they're, like we say, backtracking, because in her mind, she would have probably rather stick to their guns. But now that they realized this has opened up a can of worms for the CMA, because of the fact that even the UK Parliament said the CMA needs to really take into consideration how they can cause a lot of problems by just being a little too controlling. And that's where to me, it was kind of like a little bittersweet moment to see that the CMA is probably more than likely going to approve this deal. But at the same time, we also saw earlier this year, remember that whole thing where the CMA thought, they put out that memo that we don't see any issues with the deal and competition between Xbox and PlayStation, but we feel concerned about the cloud market. And even that was very odd, even to me and a couple other people that were very invested in watching this. And for real, I don't really put too much trust in the CMA, because we've seen them make this move before where you think they're going to approve the deal, and then all of a sudden out of left field, they just do something crazy. I do have a good feeling that Microsoft has definitely won this battle, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit there and pop the cork on the champagne until we are officially sure that this is going through, if that makes sense.
At least I sent this in our private chat, the full list of their residual concerns. None of them seem like something that Microsoft wouldn't agree to. They're all relatively reasonable. It was so funny. I was watching that Bloomberg thing that you were talking about, Centurion.
Mm-hmm.
Did you even she was like, yeah, we're just waiting for Microsoft to return with slightly amended things. And I was like, oh wow, because I was in your headspace until I heard that lady say that she was like, yeah, we're just waiting on Microsoft. I don't even think this is going to take till the full October deadline. What is it, October 18th, 16th?
18th, yeah.
18th?
Yep.
Because none of this, if you look at the list, none of it looks that horrible.
No, and I think because they're still going to be waiting as well on third parties and their feedback as to what they think about this new deal. But I think the most interesting thing that's going to come out of this is Sony going to push back again when they submit whatever they are. They going to concede now, knowing that this deal
they signed a deal. Like they came.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What are they going to say? What does what they're saying even mean, anyways?
No, exactly.
No,
so
we're still against this deal. That's why we signed a binding agreement with them.
Yeah,
Like,
so them waiting for the third party stuff, probably will be nothing coming back. So I feel like it's, I
who
don't
would
know.
it be?
I have
Google and Apple, Google and Amazon.
could be, yeah.
I mean,
knows?
Amazon's gonna win like cake with this because those games are gonna go straight to Luna.
Yeah.
Because Ubisoft does all their streaming on Luna.
Oh,
Yeah,
is
so
that right?
They have a
I didn't
channel. They have a streaming.
Oh yeah,
channel on
that's
there.
right. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. Because like, I mean, for gamers, this literally means every streaming service that still exists is now covered. Stadia, of course, not. But like, everything else will be, except for maybe PS Plus Premium. But like, that's different.
Am I the only person that feels that maybe this Ubisoft deal between Microsoft and Xbox is a little bit of a backfiring of PlayStation's involvement? Like, it's like, the way I look at it, this is just yet another reason that PlayStation Plus looks devalued, because if by some chance Call of Duty games are put in Ubisoft service, Ubisoft also still puts some of their more sought after games in Ubisoft Plus, or whatever their streaming subscription is called. But PlayStation, we all know, has taken the stance of, we will not put our games day and date in our service, and we don't know when they'll come to the service. It could be 6 months, 12 months, it could be 24 months before you see a game that you really want to play and put in the service. And that's where it just feels like, because of Sony's meddling and getting the CMA to do what they did, basically PlayStation created more competition for themselves, stronger competition when it comes to subscription services. And it's almost like you guys are backing yourselves into a corner where you are going to have to start putting titles that people want to play day and date in your service. Even the judge during the FTC trial even said, why does PlayStation refuse to compete?
Yeah. I'm really curious about that, because Ubisoft Plus multi-access being the keyword, is not available on consoles yet.
Right.
Only Ubisoft Plus is. Ubisoft Plus and Ubisoft Plus Classics, though I don't think you can get the Ubisoft Plus Classics separately. Oh no, Ubisoft Plus multi-access will be coming to PC, Xbox, and Amazon Luna.
Well,
Interesting.
I don't think that was the plan, but it's just the consequences. Ideally, Xbox would have preferred to keep it all to themselves.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Oh, ideally,
because PlayStation doesn't allow any other companies to stream games in their ecosystem. They are the only ones who have a cloud platform available. Microsoft is also mostly like that, but there is a single thing that is cloud enabled that is another company, like another streaming service.
Do you
remember what it is?
What?
It's the retro game thing. And what is it? Ant Online?
Antstream Online. Yeah,
Antstream Online. So I'm not shocked to hear that the Ubisoft streaming is going to be available on Xbox. I'm curious if these streaming games are even going to be available on PlayStation.
So in some of the stuff I sent you, you'll find it. There's a internal chat. I think, are you familiar with what Slack is?
Yeah.
So
Discord,
I don't know if it's a Slack chat, but you can tell it's an internal chat.
Yeah.
Where somebody is conversating about wanting to let the Microsoft engineers try to figure out if it's possible for the Xbox Game Pass streaming to work on the browser of the PS5.
Yep, and it doesn't work because there's not whatchamacallit, they don't have all the webhooks. Because it's not a real browser. It's not like a functionally complete browser. It's
and that's
only
where
meant to be hidden and not work.
And that's why they were asking the engineers to start playing with it.
Yeah.
Because I think they're trying to make a version where it can get around those
Yeah.
limitations.
The only thing is, like, for an end user, you have to know how to force that browser to open and be guidable. So is it a real solution for it? It was a fun thought experiment. I read that Saturday's emails. That was a very fun thought experiment from them, but I doubt that ever went anywhere because it's not feasible. You're not gonna have enough people doing anything with it, and Sony will clear up the ways that you can hack and hacky get into have access to it.
All right.
But yeah, that was a very cool email where they were like, "Can we get this to work on PlayStation's thing? Are they purposely blocking it, or is it just the browser is like fundamentally not a real browser?"
Yeah. Now, I think I had asked this before the show started, but when is like the official like thing supposed to happen for the whole CMA, or not just the CMA, but like there's something happening in October, right? That
October
I think
18th?
October 16th is like the expiration date.
yeah,
It's
is,
the 16th or the 18th.
So I've heard that we could possibly get an actual approval by October 6th.
Yes.
Because the CMA has, like they just mentioned it, the CMA right now is in a process that we've already seen before, where they take in outside opinions, both from the public and competitors in the market,
right.
on how they feel about this new deal, and they won't give their approval until that process has taken place. And I think that's where they're supposed to kind of give their final verdict as of October 6th, because I think the process of taking in all those outside opinions kind of comes to a close by October 1st.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah,
I mean, that would be wonderful. I mean, just to get this shit out of the way finally.
I suspect it does close sooner than the official deadline in mid-October. I suspect that even if the CMA doesn't return, that the Microsoft, if they may get a behind the scenes kind of nod approval, like that it's good enough to just close. While they're still dotting their T's and crossing their I's. We've seen several companies close during this phase in the past. In fact, one was closed and then had to break back apart because some stuff with the CMA. But I just reading their residual concerns. I couldn't imagine that Microsoft wouldn't be able to address every single one of them easily and like have a problem with any of them. You know what I mean? Like, heck, they could close next week.
What's funny is I saw on X just before coming on here, it was from Game Pass Tracker.
Yeah.
On there.
Yeah.
And Call of Duty games, apparently they're already prepping them to come to Game Pass. The older Call of Duties, like it was like Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and they already have a message saying you receive this item free with your Game Pass subscription. So I'm sure Xbox has a bunch of stuff just hitting the button and everything's gonna pop out there. They know what's going to be happening soon.
People really should brace for that though, because not every game is gonna come immedially.
Yeah.
And that's not even because of deals with PlayStation with the newer Call of Duties. Like the newer Call of Duties are in like a weird flux where like we don't really know when they're gonna come because of that marketing agreement. I can guarantee next year's won't be day one, but that's about all I can guarantee at this point. You know what I mean? Because they still have marketing for it next year. I think that that's gonna exclude a day one launch, but like. It'll be interesting to see, does Microsoft put as many of the console games on as fast as they can because they can, or are they going to try and wait until they have stuff distributed to their cloud servers and they have the proper stuff so that it either is listed on the Microsoft Store on PC, or that they have the proper things in place to link your Battle.net account with your Xbox account like EA Play and Ubisoft do. It'll be really interesting to see the ebb and flow, but I expect some of them to be just like Bethesda. They come in, you'll get some immediately, like within a week or two after the close, and then you'll get the rest of them over the course of like 3 to 6 months, like we did with Bethesda.
Yeah, I think all the old Call of Duties will be coming on really fast because of that leak, but also because they had them on sale. If you remember, like a couple months ago, and I think at that point they were even prepping because it was like $5, and
they've had them on sale twice. I think they might still be on sale for the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, and then they pushed out that update to fix all the servers, and everybody was jumping in and playing. So I think those are going to be coming on pretty much right away.
I would agree that the 360 games will probably be on almost immediately.
Yeah.
Because that'll be hype. I'll hop in Modern Warfare 2 with anyone who wants to hop in with me. I'm terrible, but it was the best Call of Duty.
Honestly, even if they drip feed like us slowly, like a few games here and there from their catalog, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
When I can see, like I was talking about before the show started, like games like Singularity get in there, and a few other titles, I am just gonna be pumped.
Is Singularity backwards compatible?
No. But I
maybe
mean,
after this,
that's another thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I said 6 months to even a year. I am actually somewhat convinced that a bunch of the Activision Blizzard older titles will be backwards compatible, because one of the big things was like licensing and who wants to deal with it and stuff like that. And it's like, well, now we own them, so like now it's our own prerogative to make these work, right? Because like the program is closed, but the program's not really closed. Yeah, like there's so many cool games that they should absolutely relicense and make backwards compatible. I think we've talked about this before on the show, haven't we?
Oh yeah, Oh yeah. Well, everybody knows their back catalog. I mean, from their big titles to, I mean, actually, you'd have to go back and see some of their, I guess, older titles, even on the PC. It's like, oh, I didn't realize they owned, what was it, like Hexen or something?
Oh yeah. That's another thing. Expect a bunch of the really old titles to go through that, like that. Whatever they did with, I think Hexen was part of it, where like they were really old games that they got to work properly with proper support for like DirectX 12 in Windows 10 and 11.
And Phil was randomly wearing a Hexen shirt at the Xbox showcase.
Yeah, he was wearing a Hexen shirt at the showcase. And I do think that means something.
As well.
Whether it'll be soon is another thing, but I think that means something for Hexen.
Oh yeah, it means, well, it means he wants to do something with Hexen. So, damn, surprise. When Phil wears a shirt, there's usually something behind it. He can say what he wants, but he has a history. How about you, Shockley? You got any thoughts on the whole, again, CMA just coming out of nowhere and being like, yeah, we're going to approve this after all. It looks like Microsoft did good by, giving up the Activision rights to Ubisoft for the cloud.
Yeah, it was just a kind of inevitable for them. At this point, after they came back and after the whole U.S. Supreme Court one went down, and then they're like, hey, let's, we don't want to be the odd ones out here and missing out and look like, we're just kind of the pariahs here of like, hey, are we actually serving? Our country's starting to question our whole regulatory board of like, are we actually, serving the consumers, or are we kind of doing what the U.S.
Are we the baddies?
Yeah, like, well, you saw what happened with that, where they were like, hey, are you just protecting Sony, or are you actually protecting consumers? Like how in the Supreme Court, they kind of had that angle. So it's like, oh yeah, is that basically what you're doing over here too? So are you really protecting consumers or looking out for competition? Because if anything, this is going to help competition. If anything, like how could it? People were saying it's the opposite. It's just like ludicrous to me, because now guess what? It like the judges in the Supreme Court kind of laid it out. Or not, I guess it wasn't at the Supreme Court, but whatever, that judge kind of laid it out like, hey, isn't this going to make Sony, maybe do the same thing? Maybe they'll make their service even better. So like, so that sounds good for consumers if I have both subscriptions, and hey, one's going to get better because this other one's, bring in more content. So they're making theirs better. So naturally, Sony's going to try to make theirs better, kind of like how it's already been. Both of them have kind of, look what Xbox had before when it was just Xbox. Actually, Xbox didn't even offer games with gold. There were no games with gold until PS Plus came along, and then Xbox was like, well, shit, they're, doing a whole live service
Right.
making you pay for internet, but they actually give games. So people, that's how it started. PS Plus started on not even live service. It was just like, hey, we just give you extras. So people had kind of built in that value added system. But then when, both parties had forced multiplayer for their subscription model, then it's like, well, Xbox only they charge me this, but they don't give me all these games too. So I'm kind of getting gypped here. But so then Xbox started putting in games with gold, and they were pretty decent for a while. And you actually got to keep the 360 versions until they started to get really shit. But stuff like that initially was good. Competition, you wouldn't have had those games. Had Sony's service just floundered and been shit, and they never came up with a cool way to get people on board with PS Plus initially, you would never had, those initial free games that you got with your service. You would just been paying Xbox Live Gold and, oh, cool, I can order pizza from Pizza Hut with my Kinect. Awesome, because I paid Xbox Live Gold. Like dumb shit like that. So, I mean, it's good that they've kind of came to their senses. Obviously, though, Xbox has made concessions enough. I don't know if I was trying to read through the article and know what exactly those were, but it didn't seem kind of, it was like it was a little vague. They just said, hey, they've, laid them out and we've agreed to these, and we wish they would have done that from the beginning. Well, obviously they're not going to start there, but why they just kind of said, hey, we're not even going to have negotiations, because that's what it felt like they initially did, where it was just like, hey, we made a decision, that's it. So why weren't you still having these conversations? Why didn't you tell Microsoft at the beginning, hey, we're striking this down because of cloud gaming, and hey, if you just present us with something else, we'll reevaluate it. You didn't do that until like after the whole, U.S. court thing went down, and then that's when they're, optics wise, they were kind of looking like you're like the one country in the world that's not, or one regulatory board in the whole world that's not going to let this pass. So I get their criticism of Microsoft, but it's like, but at the same time, why didn't you just say, hey, just keep trying, and you can just resubmit another one, and then we'll eventually, if we like it, we'll, but you kind of, I don't know their whole process, but they kind of just like shut it down. It was like, hey, we're not gonna, it's done. And I think they even said, hey, this is, even if you try to resubmit it, we're not even going to look at it, or something shit like that. And then Microsoft moved on because they didn't, otherwise they would have kept going at it like they've been doing recently when they've asked them, hey, we'll revisit the whole thing. But I don't know. But it felt like it was inevitable the second they kind of like said, hey, we'll go back to the table. We'll let you, we'll reevaluate it. We're not promising anything, but so you knew the second they started talking to them again that you already lost. So it's like this, the person that said, hey, I'm never going to talk to you again, and then they start messaging you first. I'm like, okay, yeah. But it's good that this is hopefully finally coming to a close, so we can finally move on. I know we've been saying that for like months, years.
So like,
and then
January.
And we'll see the actual, fruits of this whole entire process, how it's going to impact Game Pass for, some of us have it stacked for a few years. So that kind of have investment to it. And how will we get all the Call of Duty stuff? Will we get, I assume it'll be kind of like the Bethesda thing where it's like, you won't get all of the games right up front. They'll, stagger it a little bit. There's no sense of putting, like when they did Evil Within, they didn't put Evil Within 2 there right away. So I'm sure they'll stagger some games in there. So, but mainly the backwards compatible, maybe we can revisit that now that there's less red tape in between Activision, either IP or published games maybe, but who knows?
I think there will be. I do think that, again, some IP are still going to be tougher, but I do think it does clear up some red tape, though. Yeah. So that'd be nice. Because I'm all about the backwards compatibility. I love it. I want to be able to play some of those really awesome older titles. Some of those titles that, didn't see a lot of love back in the day, but became some cult classics as well. Again, I think this is a pretty good move. I mean, again, in the chat, I do agree that like for Microsoft, yeah, it does suck that they did have to work out this deal, and actually they had to go other way with a lot of different partners for the cloud streaming and cloud gaming and so on. But they did, and obviously they think it's worth it to be able to do this. So in the long run, hey, Microsoft is going to be able to own Activision Blizzard King, and it is a huge step for them. Huge step. Because remember, I mean, people were complaining, a few years ago, why doesn't, Microsoft just go out and buy this and that, this and that? Well, I think they've quieted a few people and then some. Oh, guys, any other thoughts on UK CMA giving their approval? Yes, no?
I'm just glad it's over. Well, wake me up on October 18.
All right, I'll make sure to give you a good poke there, pal. Have a coffee in the hand, and we can celebrate. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And it's finally over. And then we can talk about who they're going to be acquiring next.
Kill me. Kill me before we do that.
I mean, I would rather not, Crusader. I would rather not.
The funny part is, like, what really kind of sucks about that statement is,
we know.
Well, it's not that. It's also with what Embracer Group is doing.
Yeah.
And the shit show that's being created right now by them. And Microsoft is probably going to have to buy some studios just to keep some of the games that they have in the works alive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because it sounds like there's gonna be a fire sale soon from Embracer.
They also said that they were open to investment from outside studios, like not necessarily purchasing, but like publishing, like if people wanted to take over publishing and funding of stuff, or if people wanted to form deals. So I wouldn't be shocked if like maybe Microsoft doesn't buy it. Maybe they don't buy anything. Maybe they just start funding a crap ton of stuff.
It sounds like extortion or blackmail, because it's like, hey, you know how you have that game that's being worked on by Square Enix? Well, they need money.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, it's going to be like that. Like, either not Square Enix, Crystal Dynamics shit.
Right.
And that's where it's just like, wow. So I got to give you guys either a cash infusion or I got to buy the studio because y'all got greedy and you bought too damn much.
Oh, yeah, they bought a lot. I mean, granted, a lot of the studios that they bought weren't a lot, but they did buy a few publishers.
From what I've read and somebody I chatted with earlier today, he said that Embracer Group has spent 215% of their value. So basically, they have spent more than they are worth. And he says that they're actually in line, I think, to lose, what was it, Crusade? I think like somewhere around $3 billion.
Yeah.
It's a lot, yeah.
It's
like,
I mean, you're just like, that's insane.
I expect that they will sell. I expect that. We were talking about it last week. I actually really expect
Gearbox
to be sold. Yeah. Whether they sell Gearbox to itself and Gearbox goes independent, or they're sold to 2K, because 2K was like, we don't comment on ongoing rumors of mergers and acquisitions, instead of outright denying it.
Well, even Crystal Dynamics, like they let go a few people, I think, from marketing recently.
Yeah, I was talking about that. I actually think that has more. I think that has more to do with the fact that Marvel's Avengers is like completely like shuttering entirely at the end of this month. The game is $4 right now for the definitive edition. Go buy the game because it's going to be delisted forever after this week. Good game for $4. Excellent game for $4. And the multiplayer and stuff's still going to work. But they let go of like 9 marketing brand people and 1 IT person. Rip the IT person. I salute you as a fellow brother of IT. And like when I look at that, I'm like, yeah. And I wouldn't be shocked if layoffs hit Aspire pretty hard. Asper Media. They're like the remaster and porting studio.
Do they Do they own what was it? Saber
Interactive. Yeah, Saber's probably their safest bet right now.
Yeah.
Saber's been doing really, really, really well, and under Saber is A4, which is the Metro people.
Yes.
And they've been doing really, really, really well.
Mhm.
Isn't Saber also now got the KOTOR remake dropped in their lap?
Yes, KOTOR most likely went to them.
Yeah, that
which makes me more confident in it than being at Aspire ever did.
Interesting.
Yeah, and remember, Saber is also working on the Space Marine 2 game as well.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
Saber Paris.
What was that?
Wow.
Saber has a bunch of studios, like 10 or 15 studios worldwide.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
You think they're a potential pickup?
What, Saber? No.
No,
they're one of like the profitable parts of Embracer.
Okay.
Like Embrace, they're like one of the things that Embracer's not going to
They
now
might, funding, yeah. Unless they let go of some of the they bought a slew of indies too underneath them. So
what
I wouldn't be
also
surprised.
scary is also Embracer is not only willing to sell studios, but they're also willing to sell IP.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I think didn't they sell like the Lord of the Rings IP?
So they own. That's another thing that I could see them selling off as Middle Earth Enterprises, because that is actually a cluster fuck and a half of IP licensing, because they own like 85% of the Lord of the Rings IP, but the rest of it is held by the Tolkien estate. So you can't do everything you want with the Lord of the Rings IP.
And with what happened with Gollum, Earth, dude.
Now they have announced a couple of cool like Lord of the Rings titles. I mean, they're all very niche, but they announced the like there's that Lord of the Rings like Return to Moria game.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Out. Yeah. And then they just announced like in the last week, it's basically like a cozy Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, like that style of cozy game. They announced it's called Tales of the Shire, and it's supposed to be a cozy game set in the Shire. Which fantastic.
Sure, why not?
I'll buy it and play it with people. Let's go. People should know that I like Lord of the Rings more than Mass Effect, but it would be weird if I branded myself after Viggo Mortensen. So Garrus it is.
Oh, that's actually interesting. I didn't know that. All right. Very cool.
But yeah, cool. I could see them selling Middle Earth Enterprises because it's they're getting the Lord of the Rings IP with it, and can they make that a profitable thing quickly?
They also dumped off the Tomb Raider film rights. If I'm right, Amazon picked them up.
So that's never actually been confirmed. There was rumors that they sold Tomb Raider entirely to Amazon, but Amazon never confirmed it. Crystal never confirmed it. Embracer never confirmed it.
Well, unless they're not ready to talk about it yet.
But you could also see it happening, though, especially with the way they picked up MGM.
Yeah. And they are. Amazon is publishing the next Tomb Raider game. That was confirmed before the rumors that they were selling Tomb Raider as a whole. But Amazon is publishing the next Tomb Raider game.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to wait and see about that one, but honestly, nothing surprises me anymore in the game industry, especially like with the last couple of years have taught me. Expect the unexpected. All right, guys, I think we'll move on from the UK CMA talk, and judging from how the chat's been going on the past couple of minutes, I think people want us to get over to the big stuff, But guys in the chat, again, it's great to see you all here. A lot of familiar faces, some I haven't seen in a little while. Always awesome to see you here. If you haven't done so already, guys, please share out this show. I'd love to have more people in here. And give it a like if you haven't done so already. Give it a good thumbing, because that's always appreciated. All right, guys. I mean, again, another topic I don't want to waste a lot of time on, just like kind of BSing around it. Let's pivot over to some spicier news. And earlier this week, Microsoft had, what do you want to call them? Unredacted documents and emails between executive figures just get out into the open wild for the world to see. What, you may ask? Well, amongst other things, a brand new design controller, a diskless Xbox Series X, and yeah, we even have Bethesda's roadmap from like a few years back, detailing some, well, interesting releases, some known, some not so much. And hey, there's other stuff in here as well. It's kind of a very bloated thing here. I know everybody here probably wants to chime in on this one, but you know what? I'll lead off with our guest on this one, Plume, because I know like you've been touching on this on your channel, Plume. It's very interesting. What do you think of this massive leak? Anything catch your eye in particular amongst the giant info dump?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of stuff caught my eye. It was an insane info dump. A lot of it is like older information. Obviously, I would say like the biggest thing that will be coming to fruition most likely is going to be the console that we saw, the Xbox Series X all digital, and that new controller.
Mhm.
The controller itself sounds pretty cool with the new stuff that they're adding in. Excited for how they're going to utilize haptic feedbacks, because I'm actually a fan of haptic feedbacks on the Switch and on the PS5. I actually like what they've done there with that, and they've said things like they're going to be using it for sound and just making the controller more immersive. So that's pretty cool. The Series X, it's an all digital Series X. That one, I mean, for me personally, I don't see a reason for me to pick that up, but hey, it's not a surprise that they're doing a refresh halfway through a generation with most likely a smaller console. And as the industry moves all to digital, right, they're going to be trying to utilize that with, I mean, right now they already have an all digital console with the Series S. So I think that was probably the biggest stuff in terms of, as gamers, what we are actually going to be getting from these leaks that we are seeing now in advance. Everything else, there was just like a lot of emails, conversational emails back and forth, and a lot of people were jumping on these emails as like fact as to what Xbox was going to be doing in the future. Like I talked about in a video today, a lot of people were talking about Xbox potentially not being here after 2027 because of that email Phil Spencer responding to the subscribers for Xbox Game Pass, and if they didn't reach a certain amount by 2027, they would have to rethink their business. And I kind of read that as Phil Spencer being so confident based on how Game Pass has what they have as a service that they'll be far surpassing the 2030 projections. So that was pretty interesting to see, though, that they clearly have a set of goals that they are confident that they will be meeting, and if they don't, they may have to rethink some of the stuff that they're doing. Yeah, then like the whole Nintendo talk and the Warner Brothers and Valve companies that they were just kind of thinking, oh, these would be insane if we were to acquire them. Specifically when it comes to Nintendo, obviously that's never going to happen, and I would never want that to happen. I think that would actually be a bad thing for the industry overall. But I don't think that is actually something that Phil Spencer logically thinks would be possible. I could be wrong, and if he does think that, to me, that's kind of crazy. But yeah, that was interesting seeing what they're all acquiring, and then we got the whole roadmap with their games from Bethesda. Out of that list of games, nothing was too surprising. The only thing that did surprise me out of that was, as we were talking before the show, was the Doom Year Zero, because we were hearing about potentially they were making a new Quake, and I thought that was going to be the next game coming for them. So maybe that's changed, because these emails are old. But I mean, the leak was insane. We saw everything that's going through the minds of these huge executives at this massive company as to where they're going, how competitive they want to be, companies they potentially want to acquire. So it's just a crazy week overall.
I mean, There are some nice things like Ghostwire Tokyo sequel, for example, that is nice to see. I didn't beat the game personally. I still got to play through it, finish it, but I am enjoying what I have played. One omission there that I didn't see was Evil Within 3, which I thought was being teased, which is interesting. So
Yeah.
It should be noted that there are some project names that
Yes.
we don't know what they are, right? Like Project Hibiki is confirmed to be Hi-Fi Rush.
that's what I thought. Yeah.
But there is, I'm looking at the list. There's Project Kestrel and Project Platinum.
Yeah, and one of those,
and then licensed IP game.
And one of those again, all just rumor stuff, but on I was seeing today that one of those potentially is a Disney IP game.
Yes,
and we've been hearing a lot of rumors
IP
about.
Game
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
yeah,
we hear rumors about Mandalorian. Who knows? Who knows what that'll be? But that'd be cool to figure out what that is.
I would actually wager that the licensed IP game is from Roundhouse.
Ooh, okay.
I would wager that, because we know nothing about what they're working on, and the fact that it's a licensed IP would make more sense, because they'd be a lot more secretive over what they'd be working on than a normal studio. And I believe it's likely that Project Kestrel is the ZeniMax Online's next MMO, because Project Kestrel expansion is listed the next year.
I was gonna say, and if you look at the list, the only other game that has the word expansion tied to it is Elder Scrolls.
Yeah.
It is Elder Scrolls.
Yeah. Otherwise, they use DLC for games. Like, they use DLC for Doom Year Zero. They use DLC for Starfield. But expansion is a very different word, and means a very different thing. So yeah, I would think that Project Kestrel is ZeniMax Online's next game.
I mean, keep in mind, because they were ballparking like Starfield, Redfall, Ghostwire, even Hi-Fi Rush coming out in like late 2021. So
Yeah.
I mean, obviously things changed, right? And projects got bumped either a year or 2 years, something like that.
Does anyone know what Bethesda's fiscal year actually was? Like, when it ran? Because this is their fiscal year 21, which I don't know what their fiscal year comprised of. Because like Microsoft starts and ends in like the last day of June, first day of July, right? It starts the first day of July, ends the last day of June. So like I don't actually know what these fiscal years line up with actual years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, I don't know what their fiscal, because this was Bethesda's fiscal year, I believe.
Yeah.
And not Microsoft's. Because I think this document was from 2020, from the acquisition, and it was like a document that Bethesda gave to Microsoft that Microsoft then gave to the courts.
Yeah, I mean, it is from 2020, so I'm assuming that would make sense. Yeah. No, I mean, I would have to look further into what their fiscal year would be considered.
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, the projections still kind of, got pushed back quite a bit. So, ballparking when Dishonored 3 or Ghostwire Tokyo 2 or even this new Doom game, who knows, really? And then again, things change too, because since they got absorbed by Microsoft, they don't have the pressure to release as early, I'm assuming, considering that, their release schedule would be based around like even other Xbox Game Studios titles, correct? So yeah, just be interesting. Be interesting to see how everything else lines up. Let's see. GeneralMLD, got any thoughts about the leaks?
Oh, where to start? I mean, we talked about the games already. Yeah, Doom Year 1, that surprised me because, we all heard those rumors about like a possible Quake reboot. Maybe that's still a thing, but who knows? So that's good. I mean, they're going to complete the Doom trilogy. Dishonored 3, that surprised me because they kept saying how Dishonored 1 and 2 just weren't big sellers. But now that they're part of Xbox and, You got Game Pass changing the metrics on what's a success and engagement and all that stuff over sales. I think they can finally make the game now. And I mean, I played both games, Dishonored 1 and 2. It's a great series, lots of choice. It definitely deserves another chance. Ghostwire, I beat the first game. I'm glad it got greenlit for a sequel. The licensed game, I'm inclined to believe it's that Disney property too, Mandalorian, but who knows? That could be anything. But I hope it's a popular IP that can really set Xbox apart. As for the other two unknowns, yeah, Roundhouse, ZeniMax Online, could be anything. I can't wait to hear about those. Fallout 3 and Oblivion remasters, I think those will be multiplat, because Phil Spencer did say that legacy titles will probably stay multiplat. I mean, we saw what happened with the Quake 2 remaster, and I think those will be the big profit drivers. If anything, like if Dishonored 3 or whatever don't really perform as well, these games will more than pick up the slack and make Bethesda in the green, right? So, and I'm looking forward to playing both games myself, because Fallout 3, it got the backwards compatibility boost and all that stuff, right? So they got to do something extra on top of that to really make it stand out. So I'm curious what that will be. Elder Scrolls 6 exclusive, because of course it is.
Yes.
Come on. If Starfield's exclusive, this will be exclusive. It is a tent-pole franchise for Xbox. They're going to make it synonymous with the Xbox brand. They'll do that day one, that 4-day early access kind of stuff to buy in. They'll make their money, no questions asked. This is a PC game franchise first and foremost. Sure, it has a big console base, but this is a PC kind of centric kind of title. That's where Elder Scrolls kind of made its mark, and it's on PC day one. We all know that. So being exclusive is not an issue whatsoever. So there's that. The console refresh, that looks nice. The improvements look good. Apparently it runs on less power. The smaller chipset, all that stuff. I'm not a big fan of the design, but I don't think it's finalized. And silver lining of all this leaks, they can gauge the online reactions and make changes accordingly. Because I see people saying online, if it's a cylinder, how are you going to set the thing on side and it's not going to roll off? They have to think about these things, because some people do put their Series X on its side.
Mine is.
So, right?
Mine's on its side.
Yeah, it works pretty well, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't think it's a finalized design, so I'm not worried about that. But the improvements are, I'm glad they're at least doing something, right? The controller, I saw the controller as inevitable. I mean, they did a survey a couple years back saying if they would like if they would like gamers to have the same features as, say, like the PS5 controller, and here they are. I mean, okay. These companies, they take pages from other people's books all the time. So, hey, one less thing, right? Because there is one thing about this new controller. It has rechargeable batteries, and people have been complaining about that since the 360 days, right? So one less narrative, right? So there's that. But I think what people are really locking onto, because I'm plugged into the whole console war aspects here, right? People keep harping on the Phil Spencer email saying 2027. That's the deadline. The Xbox needs to meet certain criteria, otherwise we're going to leave gaming. And it's just so clickbaity. It is outdated information. This is pre-ABK. And basically what the whole thing was trying to say, in my opinion, was that like any business, if it doesn't see a return on investment, you're going to be in trouble. But that's true for any business. But that predates ABK. And these guys are so profitable. They have so many IP, so many games that are raking in billions of like what? I don't want to say billions of profit, but a lot of profit every year. And that's going to be added to Xbox. And there will be a Game Pass boost, 100%. Xbox will be sustainable. Any questions of Xbox profit or sustainability will be put to rest the day this thing is official. So they'll be just fine. And it only makes me think, if they have these crazy ambitions for Game Pass and these high numbers to make, it just makes me think about, what are they going to buy? What are they going to do to get those numbers up? And it's just interesting to speculate about. Like, how are they going to leverage Game Pass on PC, on console, on mobile? Who are they going to buy to increase the Game Pass value? It's just very interesting to see and think about. But in the end, we benefit because I'm a Game Pass subscriber, and I just know over the years it's going to get even better because these guys wanted to work, and okay, it'll be to my benefit. So those guys, the console warriors, they can harp about these emails and take them out of context, but in the end, Xbox just wants to grow, and that's exactly what they're doing. And they're not going to stop here. And it's been 2 years now. And I'm interested in seeing what really they're going to go after now that they're unleashed and they'll no longer have to play nice and stand still and not have to expand to appease the CMA. So interesting times ahead. But these leaks, it's unfortunate. I'm sure they would have preferred to announce these on their own time. But hey, now they can gauge reactions and plan accordingly. And I think the actual plans, it'll be even better. So that's my take. I see it as a net positive. They'll take and learn from this and learn what people are saying from it.
All right, that's fair. So everybody put down MLD for a new controller, new console. I mean, no, it is interesting though, all this stuff, like whether it be hardware, especially, like just very interesting. I mean, like the new controller, judging by the mock-up there, I don't know, it looks pretty cool. Actually, it reminds me a lot of the Switch Pro controller in some ways, mixed with like the Luna. I don't know. I guess like there's a whole kind of different like vibe to it. I'm kind of liking it. I do agree with Plume though. I like the haptic feedback. I'm personally game for it, and I think Phil has even said how much that he likes it too. So to me, this was kind of expected.
What's funny about the new controller too, I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but I've always liked how Xbox has the replaceable batteries. It's just when my controllers with rechargeables die, I'm just searching for a cord, or it's just a pain in the ass, right? But with the replaceable ones, I have so many batteries. I'm back up and running right away.
The only controller where I haven't felt that like, to go up and plug it in is the Elite Series controller, because the thing lasts for 40 hours. Yeah. It's not even exaggeration. I've tested it 3 times. I beat the entire Witcher 3 with only charging it once.
Huh.
Yeah. It's a trade-off, definitely. You're going to get lower battery life, I feel.
Yeah, that's the only I really hope that because like what wasn't listed there was an Elite controller with the haptics. Because like that's awesome. I don't think I could leave my Elite controller for the haptics though.
I feel like at some point they would bring an Elite controller with the new
design. They have to. I just hope they do it at the same time.
Give
me an Elite Series 3 at the same time you bring out the haptic controller, and I will be a happy boy.
Now, Centurion, I can't remember. Have you got your say with the whole Xbox emails? Because again, there's a lot to go through here, as I'm sure you've gone through quite a bit when it comes to these leaks.
No, there's definitely a lot to go through. I haven't given any thoughts onto it in the discussion thus far, but I mean, dude, we could sit there and we could have like a whole show on what's in these leaks.
Easily.
All right. Starting from the top, it's kind of funny. Like, why does stuff like this always have to happen with Xbox? People want to say it's a controlled leak. I don't believe in controlled leaks. You either reveal the information or you don't reveal the information. You can plainly see the serial numbers in the images that are it's like watermarked over the image, so that way they would know where the leak came from if the image showed up on the internet. Some of this stuff even has stamps on it as evidence. And definitely, man.
I know there is quite a bit. There's quite a bit here. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely quite a bit. I guess long story short from all this, because we know like there's been discussions about, what they're paying for stuff in Game Pass or what they're wanting to offer for games in Game Pass. We touched earlier about them talking about getting the cloud streaming service to work on other platforms that it's not meant for. Like GeneralMLD talked about the whole Nintendo statement that like if they don't hit a certain metric, they're done by 2027. You don't spend $69 billion to just say, F it by 2027.
Yeah.
Right.
And like also by the way, Activision Blizzard did not cost them $69 billion. It cost them actually more like 73, 74, because Microsoft has had to spend an additional $4 billion just to battle this crap out in court. So definitely this is not there's a much larger price tag than what they're just giving for Activision. There's the price tag for everything they've had to put into just getting this across the finish line on top of that. And that's where, at least with these leaks, I'm glad GeneralMLD touched on it. This is going to give Xbox a chance to sit back and do what Xbox does best, and that's pivot. We've all seen Xbox. They're very good at pivoting. We saw them recapture the Power Crown with the Xbox One X. We saw them change the entire industry and flip it over on its head with Game Pass. We've seen them decide to do stuff like cloud gaming, which, other people had toyed around with it and they never did anything with it. And they really knocked it out of the park with integrating console hardware into the Azure server blades. Xbox is very good at pivoting, and this is going to be yet another moment where they pivot, listen to the community's feedback, and take away from what it is. Like, if you want to talk about like listening to community feedback, let's use the Tokyo Game Show as an example. Elder Scrolls Online is going to be natively spoken in the word escapes me, Crusader. When is it when they have to
localization?
Localization. They're localized. So Elder Scrolls Online is going to be localized in Japanese. This is a big time. There's a lot of dialogue for Elder Scrolls Online.
That's huge.
It's the fact that obviously Microsoft has listened and they understand now for them to take a bigger stake in the Asian market, they got to start localizing the games, because that's a big issue for them over there, that they don't want to play a video game where the person is obviously speaking English and it's like either dubbed or it's subtitled. They want it to be localized. And that's where, so definitely Microsoft does listen to the community more than a lot of other gaming communities. And definitely, I do feel that they're going to take some opinions and insight from the community to heart, and they're going to definitely maybe adjust a few plans. And I only say a few because even Phil Spencer said that this information is years old and they could have already pivoted on some of this stuff. But also at the same time, I also have to, like, I liked when Crusader was talking about it in the chat a couple days ago. Just because the image of the Series X has no disk drive does not mean that there's going to not be a disk drive.
Yep.
You have a portable attachment for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, portable. We already know PlayStation is doing this with the revamp of the PS5. We're going to have an external disk drive. Now, the reason for this, like the big reason why you would want to have a console refresh and do stuff like this, is the consoles were originally designed before the pandemic, inflation, world economy going to shit. And those consoles were designed for a different price point to make a different amount of revenue. Well, that all went out the window with all those situations occurring. And now it's kind of like a necessity for both the PlayStation and Xbox to have a console refresh, so that way they can get some of these costs back under control. And we're also probably going to see PlayStation and Xbox adopt a more Nintendo approach to console hardware, because yes, they want everybody to move to all digital. And for those that are the console purists that want a console, I do want a console. But what I'm getting at is they're going to stop giving those consoles away at a loss or a break-even point. They're probably going to start being more like Nintendo, where they're going to be designing hardware for profit, and they know that the only way to keep these consoles cost effective is to start. Well, you want a disk drive, you got to pay for that, and that's what I see in these console refreshes, is them trying to everybody's trying to say that the consoles are the same. Like this, how is this console $500 as a mid-gen refresh? Because the Series X is already $500. The Series X is actually $560. They're like cramming a game in the box, yes, but the actual cost of a Series X is about $560. So they're actually trying to get the cost back down to the original MSRP. And regretfully, because of things out of their control and everything that has taken place, they're just trying to get it to where the console can stay the same and they don't have to raise prices, because it was insane that PlayStation did it, then Xbox. It's unheard of, and that's where I'm glad to see that they're at least trying to do something to stave off what's occurring, at least on a manufacturing standpoint.
It is also going to have a bunch of cooler tech in it. Did you see the tech that they're going to have in it?
Oh yeah, I think they said like Wi-Fi
6E.
Wi-Fi 6E. We've also got a USB-C,
and then Bluetooth. The Bluetooth part's probably the biggest part. Xbox has never had Bluetooth on one of their consoles.
Right. And that's where, like, you can obviously see, like, now we're I'm going to be upfront. I stand my Series S up, but I do see where some people might have problems doing that. Like, is this new console going to come with like something like the PlayStation 5 comes with, where it's like a base to put the console on its side? But definitely, I mean, regardless of the leaks, regardless of whether Xbox takes in any community feedback, what can be taken away from this is we get to see the inner workings of some of the things that go on behind the scenes. Like, we have seen, like, at this point, how much trouble Microsoft had to go through to get the ABK deal across the finish line, making a full PowerPoint presentation for the FTC trial that had thank you slides at the end of, like, thank you for being here and your participation in this FTC trial crap. And that's where it's like, and we also got to see behind the scenes of like what it was to purchase Bethesda. Like, Bethesda was a very cut and dry purchase. We could only imagine the amount of paperwork involved for ABK.
What I found interesting, Centurion, was because remember all the talks when WB Games, for example, was, the rumor was, oh yeah, they're up for sale, so on and so forth, the studios. And it's just interesting seeing in the email discussions about, oh, hey, you know what? The executive, like these guys, these higher ups, they're thinking the exact same thing, like having similar conversations as to what we were having. Granted, obviously, they're more in the know because they're in the company. But it's just like, they're like, oh, yeah, we could buy WB Games, for example, and that'd be great. But we wouldn't own like any IP. Or barely any IP, so that would kind of suck,
right?
Yeah, you need
that's
both.
why it definitely, this was more of an eye-opening experience on just the inner workings of what went on, and also, like, I know how everybody thought that the pandemic was something that everybody could have just embraced and just really figured out very quickly, and we can honestly see how, because of the pandemic, all of that information is not only 2 years old, but also 2 years behind. Games that were supposed to come out in 2020 didn't come out until 2022, 2023.
Right.
We saw that Starfield was originally slated for 2021, and it didn't come out until this year. So that means that you can see just like literally how 2 years of a pandemic literally screwed everything up.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, we always talk about Sega as well, Sega Sammy, and it seems like they've definitely had those talks as well.
Oh yeah.
Judging by some of the conversations here, like even talking about like having a special console or something, if I'm not even mistaken.
That was really cool that they were like, you
That'd
know,
be enticing.
yeah, we're not having a special console, but like we loved it, and we sent the feedback over to Sega, and they were like, yeah, we freaking love this. I hope we get some wraps because they said that they're gonna
Yes.
launch the wraps in Japan. I hope
That's
we
the
get some
most likely
Sega themed
thing.
wraps.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a very doable thing, I think. It's just, again, the email that I'm talking about it was done in like November of 2020.
Yeah.
So obviously some time has passed, but and this was after the Bethesda purchase, but it does look like they are trying to prioritize. Then again, the Activision purchase came up that they just couldn't pass up. But Sega is definitely on their radar. They know what they want, guys. They know what they want. Crusader, I mean, yeah, you've been a little quiet here. I know. What? Tiny bit. More than usual, my friend. You know, obviously, you know, GeneralMLD, Plume, Centurion, you know, they went over things pretty well with their takes.
Yeah.
Like what really what have you been glossing over, like, in all this?
So let's talk about the good and the ugly, because there was most of it was good. There was a little bit of ugly for me personally, but almost all of it was great, right? That list of Bethesda games, you guys know that Vince McMahon meme where like it's just his facial expressions and he's sliding further and further back in the chair?
Yeah.
Yes, of
Oh
course.
yeah, that was me reading the list of Bethesda games that were on that list. New Doom game, yeah. The Oblivion and Fallout of the Oblivion remaster and the Fallout 3 remaster, yeah. Ghostwire Tokyo 2, yeah. Dishonored 3, right? Like I kept reading it and I was like, holy shit, why is everyone talking about literally anything else? Like that morning when the leak happened, I'm like, how are we talking about boring emails when we could be talking about Fallout 3 getting a remaster? Like I'm still just like, holy shit. And that is just Bethesda, right? That's what I'd like to remind people. That is just ZeniMax, Bethesda.
Yes.
This doesn't have, there's most of the studios under Xbox Game Studios either have something announced that like has been announced for forever, or they're like Double Fine or the Coalition where they don't have anything announced. Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just sitting here going, holy crap. Right? It was interesting to see that they were very interested in WB, but just like before, what killed it was the fact that they wouldn't own the IP.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In fact, they were prepared to to purchase both of them at the same time, which was something absolutely mind-boggling.
They did, yes. They
were prepared to make offers and chase after both WB and Bethesda at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they do have some IP. I mean, like for example, Mortal Kombat's, you know, another realm.
So I think Mortal Kombat is one of the few. They technically, Fear is in that weird place where like they own the IP, but they don't own the rights to the name of the first game in particular. There's a few that they would own. I think there's actually those are the only two I can think of right now. Everything else is like Batman or Wonder Woman or
Lego,
Lord of the Rings or Lego. Well, the Lego ones are actually licensed. The Lego ones are double licensed because they're actually Traveler's Tale that like makes them. They don't even own Traveler's Tale.
Oh.
Do they? Or do they?
I thought they did. I thought they did own Traveler's Tale.
But that's the Lego IP they don't even own, because the Lego IP is it's double nested licensed, right?
I mean, it's
licensed from Lego and then it's licensed again from the original IP holder.
I mean, like I agree, like losing, like not having IP sucks for a majority of it, but at the same time, I mean, these studios, they still make pretty good games, so the pedigree is there.
And the one thing that I thought was very, very interesting to note was that in both of them, they both of the critiques of both of the purchases was that it's just more North American and Western developers. That was considered a con of the purchases in the email.
Oh,
That they
really? I don't
are
think I
looking
saw
for
that.
something in
Yeah.
like the Southeast Asia region.
Oh, they are
and South
judging.
South America as well.
Judging. Oh, did they say really?
Yeah, Phil has talked about wanting to being interested in investing in studios in South America.
True. Yeah.
But well, we can talk about it more when we get to the Tokyo Game Show stuff. But he did say some stuff in an
Yes, he
interview
did.
about Japanese investment in Japan.
Yes. Yeah.
But what I thought was not a great thing, and this wasn't with the digital console, it was actually on the slide that talks about their next console, like the next generation of consoles. And it was an all digital ecosystem. And
That was a
I
hybrid.
read that after I had put out the thing about them maybe having a USB disk drive. But an all digital ecosystem is a pretty definitive statement about what their plans are for the next generation. And I really hope they revisit it with as simple of a solution as a USB disk drive, because that, like, they were advertising like the new controller peripherals and everything. Like, the more I thought about it, I'm like, man, I actually don't think a USB disk drive was in their plans. With all of the feedback from the last week, it had better be in their plans now.
So,
and honestly, it's a good thing that these leaks happened if there was no plan for a USB disk drive. And I don't even care about new games being being like digital only versus physical. I care explicitly because there are 360 games that I can only play on my Xbox Series X right now because it has a disc reader. I literally just played Fear. Right? Like, in the last week and a half, I played a game that you can only get physically.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
What I would say, though, is, I mean, that goes up in that timeline, that general futuristic roadmap goes to what, 2030, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, it goes up to 2030, and it was talking about their next generation, which is supposed to come out in 2028, was where it was on the roadmap. And this is old. Maybe they've already pivoted from that, and they didn't need our feedback. If they did need our feedback to know that we need a USB disk drive for their console, that's fine. They needed the feedback. They got the feedback before this shit happens. USB disk drive. All I want. Solves every problem I have. And then I'd actually personally love the Xbox Design Labs to move into custom printing of Blu-rays and just sell them at a marked up price and sell physical copies for collectors. Because I'm not a big fan of the concept of physical games going away as an option, because how do I word this? It is always good to have a secondary market for things in any kind of ecosystem ever. So having a secondary market where you can buy and sell games, even if it's just a collector's market, even if the prices are significantly higher than they are now for games, like, I like things like Limited Run that do the limited runs of indie games. If Microsoft wants to open its own limited run thing for its games in the future, and the only way you can get them physical is like through a collector's style thing, that's fine to me. But that option should always exist for people who want that form of physical media. And that's not even, and it's not even just a like when you convert it from being like the primary source, because physical used to be the primary source of getting games. It's no longer. On Xbox, it's almost entirely digital. On PlayStation, it's mostly digital. On Nintendo, it's mostly physical. On PC, it's well, I don't want to say entirely, but like it's like 99.9% digital.
If I'm to be fair to Microsoft, though, I mean, this is just like, we don't know the full context.
No, we don't know the full concept, and that's why I'm not actually complaining here. Like, I'm not. That's why I'm not I don't want to condemn them for anything, and I don't want. I want to say just strongly, like, hey, if you weren't thinking about making a USB disk drive, just make a USB disk drive,
because they've been pretty good with things. So that's why I
Yeah.
want to give them the benefit here,
I
because
will too. And even if they said, hey, because of that leak, we pivoted and we're going to have, and like when they announced the stuff in the future, right? And they're like, hey, because of that leak, we realized, that like this was a massive oversight on our part. And because of
because
your great feedback, we have, we made sure that this was, that you're still going to be able to play these great games. And I'd love for them, because like right now, I would assume that selling the physical games is actually kind of a like break even or loss point, because of all the money that's lost with the distributors and
right.
the logistics of shipping them and producing them. You move it to a collector space like we see with modern music, or film is in this weird spot where like there are plenty of people who buy the physical stuff for like movies and stuff still, but like music's in this spot where it is largely a collector's audience. Like most people don't buy CDs anymore. Most people, like the collector's audience is actually now largely the whatchamacallits, the, why am I blanking on the word, things that, not cassettes, big black spinny disc that
Vinyls.
yeah, vinyl, thank you, brain hurt. Like vinyls are a huge collector's market today, you know what I mean? They make brand new vinyls for stuff. Video game soundtracks get released on vinyl, right?
Oh yeah, I got
And
a
that's
Halo
where I'd
4
like
one.
to see physical games go to, right? And so to hear the phrase all digital ecosystem kind of makes me sad. And my feedback towards it would be, you're missing the potential for a great collector's market that you could lean into, but you treat it like a collector's market and not like a proper, not like a massive distribution model. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
It's not that they're pivoting to being primarily digital. They are primarily digital right now. And they have been since Game Pass. It's that I'm not a fan of the killing of digital outright, because we haven't killed killing of physical outright. We haven't killed physical in like anything, right?
I don't
Music game
think.
still has physical. It's just largely a niche collector's market.
I don't think you'll go to that personally.
Yeah, and I hope that if they get any feedback out of this whole situation, it's that hey, it's like the one negative thing I saw in all of this personally. The rest of it I thought was great, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. No, for me, I'm right there with you. Like if they try to kill off physical, that would be like extremely disappointing. It'd be sad. And like we think about like the gaming collectors market right now, just with older generations, it's massive. Like it's grown, and it's, especially over the pandemic, it exploded and everything, and there's a huge market for them to tap into right there. So it would just be, I think it would be a bad move for sure. And it's also about just like game preservation. Like you said, there are certain games you can only play from the 360 era. Before that,
yeah, and it keeps those games preserved. I got into a huge fight with a couple of people online about game preservation. Physical doesn't preserve games any better than DRM digital, in my opinion, because if you're not producing the hardware and you're not continuously producing the physical disc media, you're eventually going to run into the problem where people who actually want to play these games aren't going to be able to afford it. And then you're not really preserving it for anyone. Maybe some high-end wealthy collectors can do stuff, right?
Yeah.
But there'll be a day where like you can't go out and get these old systems and the old cartridges, and like cartridges, stuff corrodes, discs rot eventually. They get laser burn, laser readers die, and like I'm like, okay, I get it,
We're still
people
so
who
far
are mad
from
at
that,
game preservation being mad that physical is going away. That makes sense, because physical is a method of preserving.
But again, judging, not to interrupt, Crusader, but again, like judging by their roadmap though, like we're talking about like 2030, and we don't even know
we don't have the full picture, and so we can only comment on what's on there. That's why I'm not being hypercritical.
To point out the obvious, they don't want to repeat 2013 either.
Yeah, right.
And so
PS6
has the option.
Any feedback they're getting now is good, and that's why I'm willing to be critical now, because any feedback that anyone at Microsoft hears about any of this is a good thing, right? If we're upset with something, we should talk about why we're upset, because we are at the point right now where nothing is set in stone. The console's not coming out for 5 years, right? A little bit more,
Right.
probably like 5 years and 2 months, right? It'll be coming out in November of 2028. And if there's something you don't like on that roadmap that you saw that we weren't supposed to see, you should talk about it now, because there's a chance we could have the absolute perfect generation where everyone's happy. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, so
Most
far,
of what I saw, I'd be perfectly exceptionally happy with.
I'm happy this
And-
generation right now, but
Yeah, you're
I
right.
hear.
You're right. And the reason we have a generation right now is exactly what Centurion said. Microsoft's great at pivoting. When they hear that fans don't like something, like TV, which, to be fair, I actually did like TV, but I was in a minority.
Yeah.
I liked picture-in-picture, okay?
Snap was the only good thing there.
Snap
from that
was
TV.
so good.
Well, again, not to retread stuff, but I mean, I liked what they showed. They
Yeah.
just went a
Yeah.
little. It just got memed into.
It got memed,
Yeah.
and they're the king of pivoting when pivoting's due. Like, they don't stick to bad business decisions that people don't like. They do things that people like. That's one of the things I like under Phil Spencer's regime, right? Like, they haven't done VR because, well, VR hasn't proven that people love it. There's a niche market that really likes it, but the amount of development you got to put in for that niche market is, at this time, not worth it. So instead, what did they do? They invested in a cheaper way for people to enjoy all their games. And they invested in studios to make that happen, right? And so I'm just like, yeah, and that's where I'm like, hey, Microsoft, the only thing I didn't like from all your leaks was the disc. Just give me a disk drive. It doesn't have to be in the system. Just give it.
The only thing that does have me a bit thinking that it could happen in next gen, where they just cut the disk drive completely, is if we've seen those numbers recently about how 75% of the Xbox sold in the Series S. So they're looking at their numbers, and they know that, what's the loss if they do cut the disk drive? It probably isn't going to be very big.
And that's exactly what PlayStation's seeing with the. We haven't had a formal announcement yet, but we've had the leaks from one of the most credible leakers on the planet, Mr. Tom Henderson. Right?
Yeah.
Man leaked this console almost the same time he leaked the Q Lite, which is now the weird handheld thing that's name I can never remember. He leaked that they're moving to an all digital model with an optional USB attached disk drive, because they at least with PlayStation, they're seeing that they have a market for they have a large enough market where it would be sustainable to keep selling discs, but it would be cheaper to sell their consoles without the disc drive in it, and then sell the disc drive most likely at a markup, and the disc drive is also a profit point now, right? Like that's that model. And if that makes you upset, it is what it is. That's the exact same thing I wish Microsoft would do. And it's not even because I think they even need to produce physical games in the future, but there are games that they have made backwards compatible that are physical only. And I personally, I like, my backlog is evident that I really care about being able to play those games, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
Like Fear, I literally played in the last 2 weeks, and the only way you can play it right now on Xbox is with a disc drive. And so that's where I'm like, I just want the disc drive.
It's a treat.
That's it. But people who are going off and being like, Microsoft does, blah 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 blah. I'm like, motherfuckers, I can't put a PS3 game in my PS5. You know how much I've begged for that for my Ratchet and Clank games, my dear Ratchet and Clank games to be playable on that system. Right?
A little.
People need to quiet their mouths when they talk about when they go off on Microsoft for needing like patches for the 360 games. I'm like, yeah, cool. They need patches for the 360 games. You know what I have to do to play my PS3 games? Pull out my old ass PS3. You know what I don't want to do? That. Like,
yeah.
I'm
Or
like,
you can
I'm
sign up to the highest tier of PS Plus and use their PS3 streaming.
No, it sucks. I am on PS Plus Premium through 2024, November 2024. The streaming is horrible. At least where I live, like I must be far
Right.
from a data center. My RTT time is awful. But like, when people are going, Microsoft doesn't care about the games they made backwards compatible. Look at this. I'm just kind of like, there's that Ice Cube looking confused picture. That's me because I'm like, Nintendo only does it through their subscription service. Not a single cartridge or anything works on that. And not a single disc will work in your PS5. PS1 and select PS2 games will never work because they don't have the right type of laser reader to read CDs. Because PS1 games were all on CDs. PS2 games, if they were the blue disc, those are CD discs, whereas the silver discs are DVDs. The DVDs would work in a PS5 if they had a proper emulator. And I'm like, if we're going to cast a stone, why are we casting a stone at the company that tried? Right?
Because it's Xbox. Ugh.
Yeah, because it's Microsoft. And to be fair, there's some shit that's wrong with like there's no reason the Series X should require an internet connection to actually set it up.
I suppose
like there are some pain points that I do agree with most of those people on, but like,
well, again, when it comes to that issue,
attack about towards the 360 emulation process when they're the only ones who even tried to make that generation survive, right?
Yeah.
Besides, a PC doesn't count, and that's Microsoft anyways, because Windows has fantastic compatibility features inside Windows. But like, it baffles me. That conversation online actually baffled me. How people could be upset that Microsoft's 360 emulators is lacking when it's the only emulator of that generation officially supported on a modern system. It boggles my mind.
Now, again, I know that there's a lot to go over with the emails and everything.
Yeah, I'm good. That was all I need.
No, and I hear where you're coming from,
Yeah.
Crusader. That being said, probably a good idea to just I just want to see if anybody else has any last comments about the emails before we move on to any or the next topic. Oh, all right. Just making sure, guys. Just making sure. I know that there's a lot to cover. But that said, guys, let's move on to the next topic. And honestly, great crowd tonight. Really happy to see everybody here in the chat. Guys, smack that like button and share out the show. We're having a really awesome discussion here. Yeah, guys, let's talk some Tokyo Game Show because, yeah, that was a thing that happened this week. It's come and gone, and Xbox had a pretty decent showing this year with a bunch of partners announcing things coming to the ecosystem, Xbox Game Pass, so on and so forth. GeneralMLD, why don't you take the helm here? There were certainly like a few nice announcements for Xbox. Did anything really catch your eye?
Yeah, there was actually a few things that caught my eye. Like, it wasn't like in the June showcase level of announcements, but it does show that they are taking Japan seriously, and it shows. Like, of course, you have like Forza, they have like a Japan track to show that, yeah, like, there is appeal with this game, with that crowd. Fallout 76, it was mentioned before, Elder Scrolls Online is getting localization, fantastic. But for me, it was they're going hard on the Game Pass route, and a lot of Japanese support that way. Ace Attorney trilogy on Game Pass. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Euden Chronicle 100 Heroes. It's like a turn-based game, kind of like pixel kind of graphics, coming to Game Pass. Octopath Traveler 2. I think that was their big announcement. Not in the game itself. I mean, it's a great game, don't get me wrong, but I think it's just showing that they're deepening their relationship with Square again. Whatever they lost contact with over the last few years, they're gaining it back, starting with Final Fantasy, the MMO, and now this game. And I feel like it's just the beginning. We're going to see more Square games that have missed Xbox come to Xbox, and hopefully Game Pass as well. That would be a nice bonus in the future there too. But I think the highlight for me is just Sega and Xbox are very cozy here. Like, you got Like a Dragon, Man Who Erased His Name, Like a Dragon Ishin, both coming to Game Pass. They showed Persona 3 Reload and Persona 5 Tactica, both coming to Game Pass, which again, like Persona on Xbox is still a relatively new concept. It skipped Xbox for the longest time, and here we are, day one Game Pass releases here. So I don't know, like I've always been pro Xbox acquiring Sega. Like it to me, it just makes sense. Like I feel like there's got to be an end point beyond just doing these deals, because they're going harder with these Game Pass deals with Sega than any other Japanese publisher. And I feel like, yeah, like they see Xbox sees a good thing here, and they're not going to mess it up. If anything, they're going deeper. They're doubling down. I mean, I just see it's just a good mix. They have a lot of IP, a lot of fantastic games. Nothing like Call of Duty level of success, but still respected games in the community. Yeah, Japanese support. They own a mobile arm now. They own Rovio now, so it just fits. And I think that I don't want to speculate too much, but this is a very good sign of what Xbox is going to do and pursue post ABK. So good times ahead. But in the end, we benefit because these are on Game Pass day one, and we, the consumer, it's our win in the end. And also, the final game that caught my interest was Pal World. The more I see it, the more I'm interested here. So it's Xbox and PC exclusive right now. I mean, at the moment anyway. But things like multiplayer, base building, weapons, because, you know, it's Pokemon with guns, right? And faction leaders. So, I don't know, like, as an adult who grew up on Pokemon, I feel like this is a kind of game that Nintendo would never do, but something that I would very much like, because it just combines a lot of things I like about Pokemon, but just takes up a notch with just themes that Nintendo wouldn't do. So in the end, I feel it was a good showing. Again, not earth-shattering, but it does show they care. They are deepening their ties with Japanese publishers, and I'm looking forward to what happens next. What happens next?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there are a few things that I kind of expected. I mean, maybe not at like the timing of things, but for example, I always talk about like Swery 65, Suda 51, and they're very friendly with Xbox, though, and the studios that they come from. So I'm not surprised that you would see like a game like Hotel Barcelona get announced.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right. So that, you know, that's something. I mean, it is kind of wacky. I'm still not sure about it, but, you know, cool little game. I'm with you on Pal World as well. I think that looks like a pretty neat concept. I don't want to say more adult Pokemon, but it's definitely an interesting
the
take.
guns are pretty adult, I guess.
Yes. You know, but there's a lot of things there that I think would work, that works very well, especially with Xbox too. You know, huge multiplayer game for sure. Octopath Traveler 2 coming to Xbox platforms, very, very good as well. Persona games. And again, there's a lot of other things too. Like Centurion had talked about the localization for Elder Scrolls Online. That's very big. Actually, speaking of Centurion, buddy, I mean, we got the Tokyo Game Show here. Again, any thoughts on these announcements? I'm not saying it was like the biggest, best Tokyo Game Show there, but certainly I would like to. There was some good stuff here, I would think.
So I did watch it, and for me, it's not like sitting there like, oh my God, I need to know what's going, like, I need to play. I'm not the biggest consumer of games from that part of the world. I'm just starting to dabble in those games. Like, I just recently played Zon Sword 7. I'm kind of also checking out some of the Dragon Ball Z games and stuff like that. I'm slowly kind of drifting into checking out games from that part of the world. That being said, though, my takeaway from the show is that I'm always interested in seeing exactly what Xbox is trying to do to basically get further ahead in a region of the world where they have not been very successful. And as we can see that there is definitely an invested interest, not only from Xbox, but also Phil Spencer. I mean, he was there to start the show off. It was also good to see a lot of developers are excited about being able to come to Xbox. They even said in the show that they're already seeing a large amount of developers that are very interested in wanting to be on Xbox. And there's a large number of them that are excited about what Game Pass offers to them. Hence, we're seeing a lot of like Yakuza Like a Dragon games end up on Game Pass. So it's definitely very good to see that Xbox is making some very big strides over there in that market. And we just might start seeing Xbox actually becoming big competition to Sony when it comes to getting some of those games that Sony is so famous for having on their platform, and that Xbox is going to start kind of showing that, you know, people will play your game over here too. Don't think they won't. And that just maybe Xbox will start being able to kind of like put some pressure on Sony and maybe just start really driving competition, which all benefits us all in the end.
Agreed. I mean, again, I can't say that this was the most exciting conference for me because I'm like you, Sent. Again, I prefer. I don't. Mhm.
I was gonna say, yeah, like if you're right, well, that's the thing. It's not really a show for people over here in the Western Hemisphere, because the funny part is, I actually happened to be uploading a YouTube video when I got the notification that they had just turned on the live stream, and it was like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning.
It was 6 o'clock in the evening their time, so it was like I think it was like 3 o'clock for 3 or 4 o'clock for me.
Yeah, that's why I'm just saying, like that. Like, I mean, like this is one you definitely catch on the replay, because if you're catching it live, you are either in that time zone or you really love those styles of games. But I, you know, like I was saying, it's just really good to see that Xbox sticks with it. Like the ABK deal, they had to stick with it to get that over the finish line. And Xbox knows that there is a lot of work to be done to get a lot more eyes on the brand over there in Japan, but they are definitely sticking with it, and they are slowly but surely making headway towards that goal.
All right, fair. Plume, I mean, I'm pretty sure you caught the details from Tokyo Game Show. I'm not sure if you watched any of the highlights, but I think you covered it in a video or so. Like, I don't know, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, no, I saw the announcements that they did. I thought overall it was a good show. I mean, they had lots of interesting games that I'm going to be checking out, games that I've previously played, dabbled in stuff, and a game like Octopath Traveler 2. I think that one I'm happy it's coming to Xbox, but that's one that was kind of odd when they first announced Octopath Traveler 2, because the first game I played, and it was on Xbox, and it was also an Xbox Game Pass, so it's skipping Xbox initially. It was kind of weird, but it's good now that it's there. The Hotel Barcelona to me looks like it's going to be a ton of fun. That's definitely right up my alley for a game I want to play. And then they had a bunch of other stuff, but I think the main takeaway from this entire show, why I thought it was a good show, was all of those Game Pass announcements, like the Phoenix Wright game, the Like a Dragon, Ishin, and The Man Who Erased His Name. Those are going to be big games coming, and it kind of shows that relationship between Xbox and Sega, and just kind of how strong it is that they're getting so many of their games into Game Pass, and now a big one coming on day one, and it's out in November, and that's going to help also with kind of ending off the year for Xbox Game Pass. After Forza Motorsport releases in October, you're going to have big games releasing still going into the end of 2023. So I think that's very cool to see. And then the Aiden Chronicles game, that I played the spin-off that they made, which was like a hack and slash game. So it's cool that one's coming out to Game Pass as well. But overall, I just think like it definitely shows the progress of Xbox in Japan, getting developers on board, showing them how successful games can be if they drop them into Game Pass, the amount of people that will be able to play them. And I don't live in Japan, I'm not Japanese, but I feel like if you're looking at this list from their perspective, there's probably just a ton to be excited about, even with like the Persona games dropping day one. Who would have ever seen that coming a couple of years ago when they were just completely missing the platform? And as we know, at the beginning of this generation, there was a lot that came out about Phil Spencer really wanting to grow there and kind of get higher in the mind share of Japanese gamers. And I think they've done a lot of work. And besides the show itself, I think after the show, there was a Q&A, and there's a lot of interesting stuff that came out of that. One of the things that has me excited going forward for Xbox in Japan was Phil talking about them working with developers for big AAA games from that region that are going to be making its way onto the platform and getting back to like the Xbox 360 era when they had like the Lost Odysseys and the Blue Dragons and the Tales of Vesperia, all those exclusive Japanese games on Xbox 360. So I think honestly it was a great showing, and I feel like they've just been continuously improving at the TGS and in Japan since the beginning of this generation.
Yeah, I mean, that was very telling comments. There's actually quite a few little tidbits coming out towards the end there. For them to work on games like a Lost Odyssey again would be, very nice, because Lost Odyssey is one of those, I don't know if I would call it a cult classic. I would say, like, to the people who play through it, like, it's beloved by them. I know that.
Yeah.
It definitely has an audience.
Yeah.
Blue Dragon as well, I would say. There's nothing else like it on Xbox, unless you play like a Dragon Ball game, but it's not the same. Definitely not. That being said, though, we know that they're working with Japanese publishers and developers, whether they be small or big. That's we even heard, what was it, months ago, that they were teaming up with Platinum again, unofficially. But apparently that's a thing. Apparently there's some meat to that. Whether it's scalebound or not, again, who knows? But I could see them doing something with Platinum again.
Bro, they can't, even if it's scalebound, they can't call it scalebound. They can't. There's too much. It's like Half-Life 3, right? It'll never make anyone happy because of everyone's vision for a game that was supposed to come out like a decade ago.
It can be called Bounded Scale then.
Yeah,
Bounded Scale.
You can't. They have to totally even if it's the same basic game, they have to totally rebrand Scalebound at this point. It's Xbox's Half-Life 3.
Hey, Thimber. Hey, we said the same thing. Nice, buddy. It's who knows at this point, but it is no, it is exciting. I'm just curious when we'll start seeing more of these, like, again, first party Japanese games. I'll be very curious about that. Shockley, buddy, I know you had to go in and out a little while back, but again, like, did you catch the news from the Tokyo Game Show? And if not, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's really good to see, like, the continued support. Obviously, we've seen where they've done cool things, where they've gotten Octopath Traveler, like the first one, and then the ball kind of be dropped of, like, why don't we get the second one? And it's like, well, you can't really just base off of sales, because there wasn't any PlayStation sales, but they got the second one. So it's like, it was just kind of weird of, like, why. I get you made the deal with Xbox to make, like, probably some nice money back, I'm sure, but it was just so weird to, like, go from there and then, like, okay, no Xbox now we're going to do PlayStation after not doing PlayStation. Like, their whole mixed messaging just doesn't make any sense, kind of like we went over last week. But it was cool to see that continued getting Japanese devs not only on support for the platform, but also jumping on board of, like, hey, you could actually use Game Pass. Again, what people kind of forget with what Game Pass that other devs can do, that are multi-platforms is they can use Game Pass as kind of an amplifier for other platforms. So like, hey, look at Persona 3. A lot of people know Persona 4 Golden or the, probably more so Royal that's been, or Persona 5 that's been a big hit. More so I would say like mainstream with that one. But for this game to go into Game Pass day one, people probably give this, more of a shot than if it wasn't, if you just had to go out and buy it. So that can be an amplifier to get it on other platforms. Persona probably doesn't need it at this point, but even so, you could do it for other games. Say there's a new game that they want to get out that's maybe a new IP, you can get that ball rolling, kind of like what we saw with stuff like Outriders. Like when Outriders came to Game Pass, it amplified that game, probably tenfold of what it was expected to do before that announcement, because no one was talking about that game on Twitter. And then the second that announcement came out, it was nonstop, people talking about Outriders. And then people were playing it and like, oh, well, that actually game looks pretty cool. People on Xbox were just playing it because it's in their library. And then a lot of people started getting on it, and that's what everybody was like playing for, which felt like for a few weeks or months. So that can amplify the sales and just get the word out. So some of these, newer IP, like Eden Chronicles, which I think was kind of like a take on like a spinoff of, not spinoff, but like in the breath of like Suikoden, I believe. But
yeah, it was inspired by it.
Yeah. So like just any new stuff like that, or if you want to do a spinoff, like when they did Yakuza Like a Dragon, doing like a new spinoff from their IP, or just stuff like that in general. So it can be used as a tool, but it's also good for Xbox to be able to get these devs on board, continue to support, not just be like, hey, we tried it, we brought you Octopath, but hey, the rest aren't coming. And that's what kind of hurts the Xbox platform, or the one thing that holds it back is just like the inconsistency when it comes to Japanese devs, because then you kind of have to feel like, hey, well, I almost have to have this another console as a side piece, like a Switch. It's like, obviously you don't just have a Switch. Like people usually don't just have that and nothing else. They either have like a game PC or a PlayStation with it. You need something else because you're going to miss out on a ton of content if you're only playing like on the Switch. So same thing with this. If you're only playing on Xbox in the past, you're missing out on a ton of Japanese just games that you won't see, that they'll just completely skip platform. And then when they do come, you're like, well, okay, maybe you buy it, or maybe you're just not into those games as much because they never come to the platform. Or like myself, when they do, I'm like, well, I obviously have a PlayStation for those. I'll continue to just buy like Final Fantasy. I already own it on PlayStation. So Crisis Core was finally coming to Xbox. But guess what? I'm probably not going to buy the spinoff of Crisis Core on my Xbox when I have all the rest of the Final Fantasy IP on, or Final Fantasy 7 IP on PlayStation. It just doesn't, from my OCD, wouldn't allow me to do that. Just like that doesn't make any sense to me. So then it's like, hey, I own Xbox and I'm main on Xbox, but I didn't buy it there. So, it looks like that, Xbox gamers aren't playing it. No, we're probably just buying it on other platforms because a lot of people have PlayStations that have an Xbox, not vice versa. A lot of people have PlayStation, don't have an Xbox. So that's what they kind of have to remember. But they also, when there's that inconsistency, that's when it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If I put the games out there and then like, after one game you didn't buy it, okay, well, no, you have to keep going. Otherwise, people are just going to be like, well, I'm never going to see this dev or publisher. They just, again, I'm not going to expect to get, some of these games. Or when they do, it's like a year later, and it's like, well, I already bought it on something else. Or a year later, so it doesn't have the, announcement, the pull when the game first dropped, or the hype around it. So it's getting buried behind other stuff now, since that advertisement's been spent and gone. So stuff like that. So it's good to see that more consistent. At least we're not waiting forever for Octopath Traveler 2. And then hopefully more of these games just come day and date. Like we're seeing Persona 3 coming to Game Pass, not only Xbox day and date, it's coming to Game Pass day and date, which is wild. So just that continued support, and looks like they're doing the work that they've been saying. Hey, we need to talk to Japanese devs and all this, and it seems like in the past that it's like I hear you talking to them, but nothing's really coming of it. So hopefully this just continues, and I would love if they would get some of Sega's older IP, if they could just like, hey, we haven't seen, somehow Shinobi's just gone. I get it. There's other Ninja games, but if you go back and play like even Shinobi on the PS2, there's not really a game like that. Ninja Gaiden's kind of like close, but even that just didn't have the same style. Like that game's still one of my like favorite, even though it was kind of like got I think a 70 or something on. It got a very average, terrible score because it was kind of difficult. But they need to take some of those IP that Sega has a ton of, and then like, hey, maybe we can, like they're already talking to a lot of Japanese devs and getting support. Maybe I'm sure there's people that love some of those Sega IP that would like kind of like what they did with Killer Instinct. Hey, find somebody that's devs that are super passionate about that would jump on board that in a heartbeat, because I'm sure there is in Japan. And that's how you could also get some talent, that you're missing out on, that normally just goes to PlayStation, or like how that what was it, Stellar Blade, how that just got bankrolled and then almost basically taken away from I guess not taken away, but it was planned to come to PC and Xbox. So stuff like that, just getting more of that talent secure. But that's what's been great about what we've seen from these relationships building up with these Japanese devs. That seems like we're going to get more of those and more consistently. So, but yeah.
I mean, if I was a betting man, I would say take a look at, I think it's called Unseen Studios. Do you remember that developer that was I think she helped show off like Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo, Ikumi Nakamura. She the cute like Japanese developer, and everybody just had like really liked her personality, and she went to go form that studio Unseen. I don't know, I can just imagine, because she had worked for Tango, I could see something happening there. Maybe like a link there because of Tango GameWorks, but we'll see. That's why I would put money on. Crusader, why don't you round us off here with your thoughts of the Tokyo Game Show?
Pow World, Pow World, Pow World. Right, so the first time I saw that game, I thought it was garbage. I'm going to be 100% honest. First time I saw it, I was like, this is trash, right? And then they kept showing it, and it kept looking better, and better, and better. To the point where like my friends and I are all really excited to play it in January. It looks ridiculous. And so Pocket Pair is really interesting because they also made a game called Craftopia. Some people might remember that. It's also a game. I don't know if it's still in Game Pass. It launched in Game Pass. It was an Xbox and PC exclusive from Japan as well.
I think I remember.
It's a very similar structured game. In fact, this is more like this new the new game Power World is more like Craftopia with Pokemon in it, to be honest with you. But I'm really, really excited for that game. It looks so I show the trailers to everyone, and they're like, this looks like something Nintendo would sue, but it also looks better visually than like all of the Switch Pokemon games. It's like the most random thing. Like I remember it showed up in one of Microsoft's summer. I think, was it last year's summer showcase? Might have even been before that. And I was just like, I want this game. I want it. I was so I it looks like I don't have to give away a copy of Final Fantasy VII Remake. I didn't think I would. I really didn't think it would be there. In fact, I told everyone as much. That's why I was willing to do the giveaway. I think it'll be there. I think that there's a chance for that for next summer because Phil has been really coy on the Final Fantasy talk. They asked him, they were like, what about games like Final Fantasy 16 or the Final Fantasy 7 Remake? And he was like, that's on Square to announce things, but we're really happy with like announcing Final Fantasy 14 and Octopath, and we have a lot of work to do with Square. The Octopath, I was actually shocked that Octopath was the game announced and not the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters. I thought the Pixel remasters were a shoo-in. I was a little shocked the Pixel remasters weren't there. Octopath is a great get. From what I've heard from everyone I know that's played the Octopath games, the first one's great, and the second one is like the Mass Effect 2 of Octopath. Like the second one is like the perfection of what they did in the first one. So if you're a big fan of JRPGs, play Octopath 2 when it hits Xbox, or play it wherever it's available now if you have those systems. I'm not going to judge you. There was some other stuff at TGS. Trying to think that there was a couple other games that they weren't at the Xbox event, but they were shown. They were announced for Xbox that were shocking, but I can't think of any of them off the top of my head. The Yakuza game, I was shocked that the was it Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name. That's the one that's coming to Game Pass. Correct? Because Infinite Wealth wasn't announced for Game Pass.
No, yeah, that's the one that's coming. That one and Like a Dragon Ishin.
Like a Dragon Ishin and Gaiden, the man who lost his name or erased his name are the two that are coming, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because those are both, and I'm not shocked that the man who erased his name is coming to Game Pass. It's not a mainline Yakuza game. It is one of the spin-off ones. I believe it's set in between. It's supposed to link the events of like 6, 7, and 8, which Infinite Wealth is 8. Yes, I think. Because they're using the numbering scheme in Japan, but they're using in the West. They're using subtitled names now instead of numbers. Because Yakuza Like a Dragon was 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Infinite Wealth is 8. And the spin-off one's supposed to bridge the gap, and so that's really cool to see. I keep and we've already said it a ton in the show, but Microsoft is building a huge relationship with Sega Atlas. Huge, and I say Sega Atlas because Atlas is technically a separate publisher under Sega, not unlike Bethesda. I mean, it's a little bit different, but like Atlas is its own little publishing arm as well as a studio under Sega. Because like Atlas is publishing that game with that looks awesome, that JRPG that looks awesome, but it has the horrible unicorn name, Unicorn Overlord.
Okay, all right.
There's a little bit more of that shown at the whatchamacallit, but like that's coming to Xbox. That was announced at the Nintendo Direct. Was it last week or the week before? But like that's coming to Xbox. And so to keep seeing more and more and more and more stuff from Sega, just nothing's like skipping Xbox now from any of Sega's stuff, and like a lot of stuff is coming to Game Pass, especially the riskier stuff, the spin-offs, the newer IPs, and that like Capcom's doing that too, right? Like with like Exoprimal, and there was that other IP shown at the Microsoft conference this summer. It's that Capcom's doing. I can't think of what it was called, but like the Japanese studios, like at least some of the major ones, seem to be going, hey, we're gonna put some of our back catalog games into Game Pass to see how they do as a back catalog. We're gonna put some of our riskier new games into Game Pass. Exoprimal launched, but there was another one announced at the showcase this summer that I can't think of what it's called. It was a Capcom game announced this summer.
Can't remember off the top of my head.
But like there's a lot of really cool stuff. I was a little whelmed by by Xbox's part in the showcase overall, and I think that's mostly because last year was actually like a banger, right? Last year they had like 1.5 billion ports announced of games that just had skipped Xbox, but they got, or they
Okay.
were games that like in the deep past had skipped Xbox, but they were getting remastered now for everywhere, and they were going to include Xbox, like the Ni no Kuni games, the fighting game. There's a couple fighting games like BlazBlue. What was the other one?
Now, I have to just interject. Did
Yeah.
any of you guys see like Aaron and Phil like with Kojima there?
Yeah, and that was another thing. Like that was actually they tweeted that they were with Kojima like a week before. Like Kojima tweeted pictures with them,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, maybe we're gonna get a tease for his game. And like, they were just they
But
happened to be in Japan, so they probably scheduled visiting his studio to check up on the game at the same time that they were going there for the conference, which makes total sense.
well, did you see Aaron with Keeley?
No.
Yeah, he was visiting. I forget what location in Japan, but Aaron Greenberg was with Jeff Keighley.
Listen, now you're you're setting up my expectations for the Game Awards, and I don't like that. I don't like it.
I'm just saying, considering like what was it, a month or two ago, they were posting pictures of like Xbox marketing with Kojima.
Yeah.
Like
And
it
again,
was.
I kind of thought he would be. I kind of thought they would throw him in on stage and have him like reveal things. I don't want to say reveal the game, but reveal things about the game. Because Kojima's weird, right? Like Kojima could tell you speak for like 6 hours, and it would kind of enthrall you about like what his game's going to be without showing you the game or even telling you the name of it. Like the man, I think missed his calling to be a movie director, but like he makes great games. And I did expect him. This is because of like all of the marketing lineup. I was like, oh, they're actually going to be doing something with him soon. Nah, maybe Game Awards. But yeah, like it was on par with the Nintendo Direct and the State of Play we got. Like it whelmed me largely because there wasn't anything. I figured we'd get like one new oh wow kind of thing from Microsoft, and we got a bunch of like, good, you're actually making sure that we're not missing the Japanese market, right? And so like it was a good showcase, but I wouldn't call it a great showcase. Does that make sense? Like I wasn't disappointed, not really, but I wasn't like, it wasn't anything close to the kind of wow factor of like even the stuff they showed at Gamescom. Does that make sense?
No, and that's fair, but I think we have a lot of good things to look forward to in the near future.
Yeah. It was a great showcase. I was just I was expecting a little bit closer to last year's Tokyo Game Show from them. Although they're running out of things to port that aren't Final Fantasy. The Ace Attorney Chronicles were really good. There's like, I think it's the original trilogy now we need to beg Capcom to port that skipped Xbox in the first place. But like both of we got the one announced for Game Pass, and then the other one, the Apollo trilogy, was announced as coming to Xbox, which is awesome. It's awesome to see that. Like it is fundamentally awesome to see the publishers not skipping Xbox. Awesome.
No, and it's great. I was looking at the clock here. I think I'm gonna start winding things down, guys. I just want to make sure everybody has had their say. Anybody want to chime in on anything else regarding Tokyo Game Show? Yes, no.
Japanese devs. You know how I talked about first-party Japanese devs in the works?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if Pocket Pair they're looking at Pocket Pair, the Pal World people. I mean, that's 2 games in a row that are Xbox and PC exclusives that have launched day one into Game Pass.
Well,
I wouldn't be shocked.
Interesting. All right. We'll have to look more into that, but good call there, Crusader. Okay, guys. On that note, gentlemen, I believe that at this point we'll close things off. And I'm surprised we got through all of it in the time that we did, but we managed pretty well. And great chat here surrounding like the Xbox leaks, the UK CMA turnaround, and of course, the news regarding the Tokyo Game Show. Great turnout tonight, certainly lively, all kinds of activity in the chat. And guys, if you enjoyed our banter tonight, our broadcast, then please consider dropping a like, sharing out tonight's episode, and of course, subbing to the channel if you're new here. All right, going over to outros now. Plume, buddy, it was a real privilege being able to have you on again. And, you know, with all this breaking news from the past week, it was just awesome to be able to cover things with you. Where can everybody follow you at?
Yeah, I know it was great to be here. Thanks for having me on. There was a ton to talk about. I'm sure we'll still have lots to talk about next week. But you guys can follow me at Plume Network on YouTube and on X, Twitter, whatever you guys want to call it. Those are the two best places to follow me.
All right, great stuff tonight, pal. Next, TXR crew, starting off with GeneralMLD, buddy. Hey, good stuff tonight. Where can everybody find you?
Oh yeah, good talk. You guys can find me at MLD Ghost on Twitter and Gamertag GhostMLD. So yeah, this was a great chat. Looking forward to the next one.
Indeed. Next up, the Arizona man himself, Mr. Centurion, buddy. Great to have you back here. Where can everybody find you at?
Oh, it was great to be back, guys. Enjoyed the conversation. And as always, it's great to chat with our guest Plume. Definitely love your content. Always being able to chat with you when I can. Thank you for being here tonight, good sir. For those interested in finding me, you can find me at Centurion1307, Xbox Live, Twitter, and of course on YouTube, where I publish there every couple of days. And you can also find me right here on the TXR Podcast, 9 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. And 2 hours before the start of this show, you can find me on Gaming Beyond the Box with Wilmy Hood and them over there.
All right, yeah, guys, definitely check out Wilmy Show. It's awesome. Who else do we got here? Eric Shockley, buddy, hey, good stuff. I thought you had some really awesome commentary, especially with the Tokyo Game Show. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, as always, you can find me at Shock Nero on Twitter, EZShock on Xbox Live. But yeah, good show tonight. Thanks for our guests for stopping by, and see you next week.
Well said, brother. All right, who else do we got here? The Crusader pal. Again, good stuff. Very insightful from your end. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Crusader3456 on like most forms of social media and the gaming consoles. You'll see me raving about Deathloop this week because I started that, and it's great.
All right. And of course, you guys can find my content on YouTube at Invader Gaming. I'm slowly coming back with some unboxings. Still got some to upload, but I'm making my way back. You know, starting to get more time to do things. But yes, excellent show tonight. And we look forward to seeing you all here next weekend because I don't know. It's hard to top this week, but I'd imagine we would get some more news during next week. We'll see what tomorrow brings us. Later, guys. It's been a good one.